Mr. President, members of the Senate, I want to spend just a couple of minutes of your time today talking about a common element that affects all of us, no matter whether we represent the port area, the Hampton Roads area, or burgeoning Northern Virginia, or the tobacco fields, the South Side, or the far Southwest Virginia. The one element that ties us all together is our excellent system of public schools. I have some good news to share with you today. The most recent edition of Education Week. This is a nonpartisan, not aligned with any particular interest group, but a publication that really ranks and writes about the quality of public education all across these great United States. Each year, Education Week collects data and reports on what they call their quality counts. And it's a matrix whereby they assess the quality of the public schools in each of the 50 states. I'm proud to share with you this morning that in 2011, Virginia ranks 4th in the nation on Education Week scale for education policy and performance. 4th in the nation. We rank behind Maryland, which is number 1, New York, number 2, and Massachusetts, number 3, and the great Old Dominion, number 4. Something we should all be extremely proud of. What makes those statistics even more interesting is when you compare that 4th ranking based on our own JLARCs. You know, JLARC puts out a publication each year called Where Virginia Ranks. The most recent edition of that, which was 2010, it ranks the states and our funding on a per pupil basis based on 2006-2007 spending. In that JLARC publication, based on what we were spending per pupil, Virginia ranked 33rd. And let me remind you, that was before this horrible recession gripped this state and all the others. As an example, in comparison to those other 4, which we rank behind on Education Week's quality counts, New York ranks number 5, Massachusetts number 11, and Maryland 22nd, based on 2006-2007 figures. There's no doubt that this recession, which has gripped this Commonwealth, has had its devastating effect on our public schools. I've had distributed here to your desks this morning a bar chart produced by the Virginia Education Association showing from Department of Education sources what has happened to the erosion of our public schools funding on a per pupil basis just the last few years. The bar graph tells it much better than I could stand before you and try to describe it. What the bar graph shows is 2009 per pupil spending at $5,274. 2010 it drops to $5,000, but check the footnote. That included federal stimulus money that we put in to try to prop up our public schools. Without the stimulus money, it would have dropped much further in 2010. Look at the current budget that we're operating under now as we speak, that for 2011 and 12, and you can see how far the drop-off is without the federal stimulus money. If you look further to the right, you'll see the introduced budget, which we have amended and you will now be considering tomorrow. You'll see where the funding is in that introduced budget. The last 2 graphs there show you what is before us in Senate Bill 800 tomorrow and what the House has adopted in House Bill 1500. The budget that you will receive that we will be voting on tomorrow puts an additional $100 million back into our public school system. That's by actions of your Senate Finance Committee. And as you can see, it begins to reverse. It certainly doesn't take us back to 2010 and 9, but at least the trend line is much better. And that's for all of us. No matter what district you represent, this is a very positive step forward in the budget you will have tomorrow. Mr. President, the other thing that really astounded me when I flashed back to the Education Week, the quality counts, there's two pieces of that matrix where they're measuring the quality. It's both policy and performance. Policy, as in the policies that the various states adopt, and then the performance, how well the public schools are performing. When you think back of what's happened with our per pupil funding over the last few years, it makes that number 4 ranking even more remarkable. Because the policy decisions that we've have enacted, not because of choice, but because of making those very difficult budget decisions the last few years, here's some of the policy decisions that's embodied in those actions over the last few years. We've put a cap on the funding of support positions. We've reduced funding for textbooks. We've eliminated the updates to the SOQ funding for inflation. We've adjusted funding for health care premiums for the teachers and other school employees. There's been an elimination of school expenditures from the SOQ calculation. We've actually gone into SOQ and eliminated part of those expenditures. And of course, as you know, we've eliminated lottery funding programs. The impact of those actions, and this is why tomorrow is so important, because tomorrow we're going to change the trajectory, hopefully, when you adopt this budget. The impact that's been felt back at our school divisions was assessed by the Virginia Association of School Superintendents in a survey they conducted of all school divisions back in the fall. Here's what those surveys result. This is the effect of those painful cuts we've made. Over $1 billion. We've cut over $1 billion out of public education the last few years to balance the budget. Here's been the effect of it by way of the superintendent surveys. 99 school divisions out of 132 have delayed needs such as textbooks, equipment, and maintenance. 93 school divisions have eliminated vacant positions, totaling 3,600 positions in our public schools. In addition, there's been at least 96 layoffs and reductions in force. 110 of the 102 school divisions have frozen salaries and made other across-the-board reductions in pay. At least 80 school divisions have increased class sizes in a variety of ways. 60 school divisions have eliminated electives, and 31 school divisions have instituted fees to help students cover the cost of things that were borne by either the local school division or the state. Mr. President, members of the Senate, you all have sat here with me and we've made those very painful decisions the last few years, and we had to make them. Over $1 billion worth, and the effect as we've seen in our schools. But despite that, our dedicated public educators and parents and communities have still risen to the occasion to make sure the performance has been accomplished. And we should feel proud of that. But Mr. President, the time has come now with some extra money to change it. And the budget that will be before you tomorrow will start that change. $100 million back to our public schools to stop the steep erosion that's happened on our per pupil funding. I look forward to the adoption of this budget tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.